The Lapis Lazuli Academy is both tranquil and peaceful. Some classmates come up to greet Tia Rose Lapis Clementine. They were sad with tomorrow being graduation, knowing they wouldn't see each other anymore. However, she was optimistic they would. She'd always be here, in the kingdom of Lapis Lazuli after all. Marietta expressed optimism, since Tiara was their future queen. Florian asked when her wedding was with Prince Heartknights, and Tiara answered after graduating, she'd undergo bridal training for a year, and then they'd hold their wedding in the cathedral. She promised to do her best to live up to everyone's expectations. Tia Rose was the daughter of the Marquis and Prime Minister, bestowed the Lapis name, and fiancée of the Crown Prince. She smiled with glee, seeing her prince. However, Heartknights seemed grim. A black-haired girl would come running into his arms. Tiara couldn't believe this was happening. We see a blurred vision of a girl playing her favorite otome. This girl absolutely loved Heartknight's gorgeous looks. His gentle way of telling her, "I want you to live with me, now and forever." The girl clicked yes, with no hesitation, achieving a new CG event and finally clearing his route. She loved the otome game, the ring of Lapis Lazuli, so much she couldn't put it down. She'd be met with surprise that Tia Rose would walk up to her, saying, "You're just a lowly commoner. Stay away from my Heartknights. You're an eyesore." Now the girl inhabiting Tiara's body realized she was Tiara. She fell over. The girl who gamed was her previous life. She reincarnated as the Villainess. She woke up in the infirmary with Heartknights by her side. He told her to get more sleep. He was arranging a carriage for her now. Heartknights, Lapis Lazuli, Lackmouth, Prince of the Kingdom, and the main route in the otome game. He pointed out that was her first time passing out, and asked if she was trying to catch his eye because he was giving Akari so much affection. His eyes were cold, nothing like Heartknights in the game. She apologized, answering she really was under the weather. He was alright with it, because he was technically her fiancé. The word technically caused her heart to ache. He knew tomorrow was the graduation party, but he had business to attend to, and apologized, but he wouldn't be able to escort her there. Was there any greater humiliation than not being escorted to a party by her fiancé? She knew what happened in the story from this point on, because she played the game so many times. The main route was Heartknights. The heroine enrolls at the academy with her powerful magic, the Holy Prayer, and meets Heartknights. He was the most popular student, yet constantly showered the heroine with affection, smiling at her kindly, whispering sweet lines to her. And after the ending scene, they have a grand wedding at the cathedral. But Tiara wasn't the heroine. Instead, the harsh Villainess, who constantly chastised the heroine, not wanting to lose her prince. At the graduation party, she's condemned for her contempt of the heroine, and her engagement gets called off. In this timeline, Tiara hadn't done anything mean, but she'd like to avoid the condemnation event if she could. Unfortunately, today was the game's ending. Only a bad end awaited. She couldn't remember what happened after this event, but there was no happy ending where the Villainess ended up with someone. At home, she was greeted by her maid, Feline. The Lapis names an honor bestowed upon the families of those who perform great deeds for the royal family. She'd be met with surprise with both of her parents greeting her. They rarely welcomed her home personally. However, they wanted to give her lovely accessories she could wear at her wedding, as well as eat sweets. They wouldn't be able to spend as much time doing this together like they used to. Her father knew it was too soon to start crying, but he'd miss his dear Tiara. Being the daughter of the Marquis, granted the Lapis name, she's been undergoing training to become queen since she was young. As the crown prince's fiancée, she's worked hard at studying all sorts of subjects. Her father often told her if her husband seemed like he was about to take a wrong turn, she needed to correct him. It may have been strenuous at times, but she did it all out of love for the prince. Unfortunately, she didn't get through to him. She really loved his character though, and considered skipping the graduation party, but it'd be bad for the daughter of a marquis. The last thing she wanted was to trouble her dear mother and father. Heartknights was playing his role, and she couldn't change her own either. She wondered what was going to happen to her. That night, a mysterious boy enveloped his body in magic. He uttered Tia Rose's name, yearning for her. At the condemnation event, Tiara's friends were angry about Lady Akari's behavior. She hung around Prince Heartknights too much. No matter what, they were on Tiara's side. After they left, her hand started to tremble. She prepared herself for this, but she was still scared. To cheer her up, Feline brought her a whole tray of sweets. Tiara loved baking and eating sweets ever since her previous life. Eating them made her very happy. Akari suddenly barged in, asking if Tiara was alright. The conversation exchange they had was pleasant. Tiara was sure she was the heroine of the otome. A cute, luxurious dress, shining jewels, the sweet nature of an angel. She was everything you'd expect of the game's heroine to be. Akari expressed worry since Tiara's collapse yesterday. Heart Knightson came in, checking on her since Akari was. The entire interaction hung around his arm. Reaching the ballroom, Tiara knew the event was going to start when she went past the doors. The people began to clamor, questioning why Tiara was entering alone without her fiancé, and Heart Knights would then declare in front of everyone that their engagement was off. Tiara's father began to panic and started to approach. But Tiara shook her head no. She asked Heart Knights the reason. If he wanted to take a consort, there were proper procedures he could follow. He berated her for talking back to a member of the royal family, and explained she said many harsh things to Akari after learning she grew up in the countryside, told Akari to kneel when greeting him, and that she shouldn't dance with him either. Tiara logically answered that she just helped Akari learn some things, not being accustomed to life here, that she was to kneel before Heart Knights, since he was crown prince, and that other time, Akari had already danced with him more than twice, something only one's fiancé should do. All perfectly reasonable explanations. Heart Knights gulped. He was losing, going, but, Akari said you're always mean to her. Tiara knew any defense of her innocence would be fruitless. Whether it was because the heroine conquered him, or it was a revision to the game, it all went according to the story in the end. With a sad expression, she asked if his heart truly belonged to Lady Akari. He ended his engagement to Tiara, and declared his new engagement with her, making Akari future queen. Bruh, her smile pissing me off. Even though it was over, Tiara still had her kind parents, as well as Feline and her friends. But that would come shattering, with the prince declaring the crime of harming the future queen unforgivable. He thereby banished Tiara from the kingdom. He was too cruel, but she couldn't defy his order. Now, she wouldn't be able to see any of her loved ones again. The mysterious boy would cut in, saying, "That's enough." He walked towards, asking Tiara if she was alright. This was the first prince of the foreign kingdom Marine Forest, Aquasteed Marine Forest, and still one of the worst naming of characters I've ever heard. He was the main character of the game's sequel. Tiara fell in love the moment she first saw his design, but she died before the sequel was even released. She wondered what he was doing here. He told her to stand tall in all her pride. She was more righteous and beautiful than anyone here. Heart Knights told him to stay out of this, because she needed to be condemned. Aqua countered, however, that it seemed Heart Knight's words had been way harsher than hers. He broke his engagement off at a graduation party, a celebratory event, criticizing a lone woman in front of everyone and humiliated her. Things a crown prince should not do. Now that Tiara's old engagement was done, Aqua got on one knee, asking to be the one to save her heart. He's wanted desperately to make her his for a long time. She was flattered, but wondered why the sequel prince was proposing to her. He knew this was sudden, but gently kissed her hand, hoping she'd consider regardless. The guests were all surprised. In this moment, it's like they were the only ones here. Akari told them to wait. She couldn't accept this. She asked why Aqua chose her, because Tiara was terribly mean and belligerent. She grabbed Aqua's arm, telling him to join them, but Tiara would warn her that he was a foreign prince. She wasn't supposed to touch him like that. Aqua pulled away, thanking Tiara for her concern, for disrespecting him. He had the guards take Akari away. Despite knowing they should be past the game's ending, Tiara wondered what was going to happen now. Tiara apologized for staring at him so intently. His looks were a favorite amongst the ladies. Hearing this, he wondered if that meant he could get his hopes up a bit. She asked Aqua why he proposed to her, and he answered, "There's only one reason. I wanted you desperately, Lady Tiara Rose." Tiara first met Prince Aquasteed a year ago at a soiree. They were in the same class at the academy, but hadn't really spoken at all. She wondered why he chose her. He told her he always watched her from the window of the library, and often saw her reading in the shade of a tree. He thought the constant changes in her expression were adorable. She looked so serious when reading, but in the next moment, she'd start shyly blushing. When he saw tears in her eyes, he wanted to embrace her so badly. Covering her face in her hands, she asked him to forget that, but he couldn't. Now that they were finally together, he wanted to see more of her face. Watching her reading under that tree every day, he became more and more captivated by her. So much that he even surprised himself. But she was engaged to Heart Knights, and he could never steal a foreign prince's fiancée. He originally intended to keep his feelings to himself. After completing his year of studying abroad, he returned home and told himself to forget about her. But then, couldn't believe his luck. He was desperate to not let that opportunity pass him by. He thought maybe he was pathetic. She told him not at all. When she was standing there all alone, his presence was very reassuring. He was a bit shocked when Prince Heart Knight went so far as to banish her. Though, if she were banished, the thought crossed his mind to just take her away. With him smelling her hair, she told him not to tease her, but he was serious. She wondered how he could say all this so calmly. Was it because he was a character in an otome, or was this just his personality? It pained him to hear she doubted him. He loved her so much, he just couldn't contain himself. He lightly kissed her forehead, and unfortunately, they arrived. Escorting her out, she thanked him for seeing her home. He asked her out on a date, and she gladly accepted. Graduating from the academy now, she had plenty of time. Inside the house, Tiara's father was pissed. Her engagement was annulled, and the prince threatened banishment from the kingdom. How dare that fool say things to his sweet Tiara Rose. Tiara's mother brought up how Prince Aquasteed was quite lovely. She asked if Tiara was going to answer him. They all wanted to know how she felt. Tiara thought he was far more than she deserved. A villainess marrying the crown prince of a neighboring country? Was such a future even possible? The next day, Heart Knights demanded the guard to let him through to see Akari. Despite his father's orders, Heart Knights promised he wouldn't be long, that he's realized his judgment might have been a mistake. He needed to speak to her to know for sure. Akari was happy to see him. She missed him, and there was nothing to do here in confinement. She thought she was going to die of boredom. Hearing the word boredom, he was surprised. It was like what happened at the graduation party wasn't on her mind at all. He asked if what Tiara said that day to her was true, that she hadn't done anything wrong, but Akari remembered feeling bad because Tiara was mean to her. Since she had Heart Knights by her side though, she felt very reassured. Heart Knights shrugged her off, making her question if Tiara said something to him. She couldn't believe the villainess was still involved, even after the story was over. She told Heart Knights to get her out of here as soon as he could, and to also tell her about Prince Aqua. After what Tiara told her, she wanted to save Aqua before he got hurt too. The end of the graduation event marked the end of all the games events. Tiara contemplated what might happen next. Prince Aqua was the main character in the sequel. She couldn't imagine a future where she, the villainess, became his consort. If the sequel had a heroine, Aqua might have a change of heart too, just like Heart Knights. A rock hit her window, and going to check on it, she saw Aqua waiting outside. He hit her with a smooth, "Good evening. Isn't the moon beautiful tonight?" He hopped up the balcony like it was nothing, telling her there was something he had to show her. He asked if she was familiar with the Fairy Star Festival. There's an event in one episode of The Ring of Lapis Lazuli that the heroine gets to see with the character she's closest to. Aqua used his magic to call the fairies, then put his jacket on Tiara. He couldn't have her catching a cold. He put his head on her shoulder. He was so happy to spend time with her. Having her look at the sky, she awed at the beautiful star shower. He was glad she enjoyed it. Staring at his eyes, she compared their golden glow to the stars. It's like they were sucking her in. Having a meal together, the king asked Heart Knights if he gained anything from meeting Akari. Heart Knights apologized for going off on his own, but reported he realized he believed what Akari was saying without even questioning it. He wished he had listened to Tiara more. The king then said he apologized to Tiara for the terrible time she had, but she didn't blame Heart Knights at all. The two of them used to talk all the time, and Heart Knights regrettably remembered. She kept him in line whenever he was skipping class, helped him work through his nervousness, and told him to carry himself with confidence. She constantly scolded him because her focus had always been on the future of the kingdom. Heart Knights only now realized she cared for him so much. Meanwhile, she moved on, getting ready to look glamorous for Aquasteed. Feline chuckled, thinking Tiara looked like she was having so much fun. It made sense, since this was her first date. Wow. She never went on a single date with Heart Knights? Feline adorned Tiara with a hair ornament made of coral, a specialty of Marine Forest Kingdom. She was sure Aqua would be pleased when he saw her wearing it. With Aqua arriving, Tiara's heart was pounding in her chest. Her feet felt like they were floating. She's never felt like this before. She enjoyed the beautiful field of flowers he took her to. Again, something she never experienced before. Sitting down for a picnic under the shade of a tree, she presented some madeleines and cookies she baked for him. He enjoyed the delicious taste, and she went on about how she loved eating and baking sweets. Madeleines were one of her favorites, because they were light and airy, but perfectly moist. They paired well with tea, cocoa, and so many other drinks. She once baked a whole basket full, then got absorbed in a book, and before she knew it, the basket was empty. Aqua loved how adorable she was when talking about sweets. He could listen to her forever. He picked up a cookie, telling her to open wide. She wasn't expecting that. She ate it from his hands, and this somehow made it taste better. He suddenly held her close and whispered, "May I call you Tiara?" By the way, he had been calling her Lady Tiara Rose the entire time. She told him it was fine, and he in turn wanted her to call him Aqua. She never felt anything when Heart Knights called her Tiara. Aqua suddenly embraced her. He didn't know what to do. He He was so happy. She was worried this close. He'd noticed her heart was racing. Her eyes widened, noticing his heart was beating too. He caressed her hair, telling her she looked like she was waiting to be kissed right now. He felt it was too bad. He planned to go on more dates and take his time, but it was no use. In front of him, he couldn't help but want her. He now wanted a favor and asked her to feed him a cookie. She did, and while he chewed, she felt like she was feeding an animal. She was glad he enjoyed her cookie so much, and turning around, he noticed the coral hair ornament and asked if it meant he could get his hopes up. Resting his head on her shoulder, Tiara again wondered what would happen to her from here on out. Back at home, she wanted to talk to her father about something, and when he guessed Prince Aquasteed, she quickly grew flush. He admitted he'd be sad seeing his daughter marry into another kingdom, but seeing her happy and smiling was what mattered most to him. The next day, Elliot, Prince Aqua's attendant, greeted her. The two conversed on the differences between the two kingdoms. Marine Forest was apparently abundant in natural coral, pearls, and other jewels of the sea. She thought it was every girl's dream. They'd come across heart knights along the way. He froze seeing her, then apologized for what happened at the graduation party, not what she was expecting. She told him to raise his head because a member of royalty mustn't bow to just anyone. He felt nostalgic. She always cautioned him about all kinds of things. He thanked her for doing so much for him. She was glad he understood and felt genuinely happy to see the character she loved in her past back on his feet. He went to reach for her, but Aqua would slap his hand away, holding Tiara tight in his arms. He asked Heart Knights, "What were you trying to do to my beloved fiancé? How could you?" Not like the video and subscribe to my channel. Here on my Shoujo Weekly, I've got a ton of villainous anime for you to watch, and even a whole playlist filled with 20 plus videos. There's Regression Villainous, Manhwa Villainous, Villainous Level 99, Dumb Villainous, and many more. So hit that subscribe and I'll be your guide. During their school days, all the girls would fawn over the foreign prince, Aquasteed, clamoring about how he's traveled across several countries just to further his own knowledge. At this point, he had just transferred to Lapis Lazuli Academy because he wanted to end his travels by studying properly. They heard he was brilliant with a sword, too. One look was all it took to get the girls squealing. Elliot would tease Aqua for being front and center again. He heard Aqua had his own fan club now, and its members were growing by the day. Aqua assumed it was because a foreign prince was a novelty, and dismissed it to say he was heading to the library. Elliot thought it was good His Highness was so studious, but also thought perhaps it'd be good if he looked at other things as well. Aqua received invitations from so many young ladies, and yet he refused them all. However, Aqua dismissed the idea once again, simply answering there were so many books here they didn't have in Marine Forest, and they intrigued him. He wanted to be worthy of the title of Crown Prince, wishing for nothing more. He was happy with this book at the library, but with one glance outside, seeing Tiara's beautiful smile, his heart made a sound. He met her a year ago at a soiree that was held to welcome him. Prince Heart Knights welcomed Aqua as an honorable guest, introducing Tiara as his then fiancé. Aqua was impressed by her courteous language, her soft manner of speaking, her flawless etiquette, and her polished demeanor. The effort she put in was as plain as day. She was so dignified at times and spared no effort in anything she did. Whenever she saw someone in need, she talked to them and offered her aid, never pretending she hadn't seen them. There he was, trying to be a worthy crown prince, while she carried herself with the dignity of a lady of the Lapis name. They were similar in the way they both constantly disciplined themselves. But whenever she ate sweets, the contrast delighted him. He loved all the little expressions she made. Elliot would catch him staring at Heart Knights' fiancé, and Aqua would tell him she was out there every day. As he watched her every day, his interest grew. What book was she reading? What was she saying? What was this roaring in his chest? Elliot could see that lately, Aqua wasn't coming to the library to read, but instead to gaze upon the flowers. Well, there was only one flower in Aqua's eyes, and watching her calmed his soul. It began to rain, and Elliot was surprised to see Aqua casting magic, calling forth the wind to disperse the clouds. Elliot asked why, since he almost never used magic, and Aqua answered he didn't want Tiara's book to get wet. But he knew the truth. While pretending not to realize it, he was in love with her, so he wanted to give her something, some small happiness, a smile. If he could reach her, if he could touch her, she was close enough for it. But he couldn't. He mustn't. Elliot suggested he talk to her, but Aqua told him not to get ridiculous ideas. She was Prince Heart Knights' fiancé, and one's first love was fleeting, never coming to fruition. All he was allowed to do was pray for her happiness. The day came when he walked into Tiara collapsing as she saw Heart Knights holding Akari in his arms. Aqua came to her side, and picking her up, he took her to the infirmary. Watching while she recovered, he wondered what could have happened to make this strong young lady collapse. Was it because of the girl who immediately transferred in and grew so close to Heart Knight? Perhaps he'd leave Tiara rose for her. Heart Knights entered and apologized for the trouble Tiara caused Aqua, taking over from here. Outside, Aqua stared at his hands. This was the first time touching the girl he loved, but he shook the thought away. His time at the academy ended with tomorrow's graduation ceremony. Surely, these restless feelings would ease up after. But the day came, and Heart Knights viciously annulled his engagement to Tiara in front of everybody. In that moment, a storm welled up in Aqua. He wouldn't hesitate, and followed his heart to be by her side. He'd take the flower he could only gaze at before into his arms. Of course, what happened was everything we know thus far. Aqua would have Elliot send a letter to his father, the king, and Elliot sent it in the form of a dove. The contents Aqua wrote explained he'd be bringing Tiara back to Marine Forest as his fiancée, so she could live her life there and want for nothing. A new wish was born in his heart, to make her his own. Eventually, she agreed to marry him, and his wish came true. On the day she came to visit unannounced, Aqua was so excited to see her, but Elliot reminded him he needed to finish his pile of paperwork. Afterwards, he strolled the halls to find her, getting irritated seeing Heart Knights, and slapped his hand away. Holding her possessively, Aqua asked what he was trying to do to his beloved fiancée. Tiara blushed hearing his words, and he kissed her hair, then whispered, "It's all right. I'm sorry I took so long. Tiara, I've come to see you." Aqua was stern, affirming to Heart Knights that again, Tiara was his fiancée. Heart Knights couldn't believe this. They were already official? Well, turns out Aqua had the consent of both Heart Knights' father and Marquis Clementine, as well as his own parents. He told Heart Knights he couldn't touch her as he pleased. Ah ha ha, that's what you get, you dumb piece of shit. Quit trying to crawl back and go back to your little pick-me-hoe. Heart Knights apologized for being unaware, and Aqua responded he'd overlook this now that Heart Knights understood. The happy couple would walk off, and all Heart Knights could feel was regret. Tiara wanted to talk to Aqua about what just happened, but he told her not to worry. He was her fiancé. Of course he'd protect her. Her heart began to race. She accepted his proposal, but felt so embarrassed hearing him say it. He thanked her for choosing him, and she in turn did the same. It was like the scary version of him from a moment ago never existed. She felt so safe. She squealed seeing the confectionaries he prepared for her. A whole cake packed with strawberries and a fancy tea set. Afternoon tea with Prince Aqua in a beautiful rose garden. It was all too amazing for her. She knew strawberries were a specialty of his home country. Cute and sweet with a hint of sourness. Wow. I've never heard of strawberries described that way. Either way, she loved eating them and baking with them. In cakes, cookies, puddings. She apologized for getting lost in the moment, but ever since she got her memories from her previous life back, she's been wanting to make a new dessert with strawberries. After she enjoyed the cake, Elliot introduced himself once more. Since he wasn't a noble, he had no family name, but he's been serving Aqua for a long time. Feline introduced herself next. She and Tiara grew up together, and Tiara thought of her like an older sister who's always been by her side supporting her. Feline thought the same and promised to follow Tiara wherever she went. The tea time was wonderful, and Tiara was happy. In contrast, Akari was so bored, especially bored since Heart Knights wasn't visiting. She couldn't believe it was all about Tiara, because she loved Prince Aqua too, and she was the heroine. Remembering that, she got an idea. Aqua would, meanwhile, take Tiara to a secluded bench. He was fine having fun with everyone, but he wanted some alone time with her. He spoke in a soft whisper, thanking her for accepting his proposal. But he didn't want it to be all for show. He wanted to ask her again, since he did kind of force her into all this. Speaking her full name, he asked her to be his consort, and cheeks in his palms, she accepted with much pleasure. He abruptly kissed her, apologizing because he was just so happy. He told her, "Tiara, I love you," and pulled her in for a kiss in the arms of the person she loved. This was the kind of first kiss people dreamed of. They said each other's names over and over as he showered her with kisses. She was just so adorable, he couldn't stop, and she was gonna die of embarrassment. But she was happy. An intense light suddenly shone, illuminating the whole area. It was so intense, nobody knew what was going on, except for Tiara. She suspected this was the heroine's holy prayer, a rare magic that only one person in this world could use. Its light, with its power of absolute purification, enveloped the entire country, repelled disasters, and brought peace. Only the heroine of the game could use it. Tiara questioned why use it now. Aqua had his men look into it, assuring Tiara things would be fine. But she knew every country wanted the power of the Holy Prayer, not just the kingdom of Lapis Lazuli. She was sure the kingdom of Marine Forest would do anything to get it. She questioned if Prince Aqua would desire the heroine's power. He just looked at her, telling her that no matter what, he'd protect her. On another day, Verline poured Tiara some extra sweet tea. She drank with anxiousness, because there hasn't been a report from the castle yet about the Holy Prayer. She felt a clench thinking about what might happen once Aqua found out about Akari's power. Assuming things followed the game's story, Aqua was introduced in the sequel, so that shouldn't matter. But now that the game's practically over, she wondered if they were moving on to the sequel now, and would he end up by Akari's side? One of the knights would report that he was told the light was the result of defective magical equipment, and Lady Tiara Rose was asked to return home until the castle's inspection of said equipment was complete. They were glad it was nothing serious, except for Tiara, who knew what it really was. She didn't want to go. She wanted to see for herself where the game went from here, and hoped Aqua didn't take the heroine's hand. That evening, Noah entered Aqua's office, giving him the news Akari, in fact, has learned to use the Holy Prayer. Aqua couldn't believe what he was hearing. This was becoming a problem, because the Holy Prayer was a power desired by all nations. Any nation possessing it could enjoy total peace. Those who could use it often married royalty. Every royal family wanted to make it their own. It's likely that Lapis Lazuli would make Akari marry Prince Heartknights, so they wouldn't ever lose her. But even so, Aqua considered using the power of Marine Forest to intervene. He wanted to obtain the Holy Prayer to make his nation more prosperous. 10 days passed, and Tiara still knew nothing about the Holy Prayer. She assumed her father might know something, since he's the Prime Minister. But she couldn't ask him about something the royal family was keeping quiet. She also hasn't seen Aqua since that day. Verline alerted Tiara preparations to depart from Marine Forest were complete. They could go whenever she was ready. But she was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Tiara felt frustrated that all she could do was wait for a word from Aqua. Akari, meanwhile, continued to mull over why Prince Aqua wasn't visiting her yet. She thought once he saw the Holy Prayer, he'd immediately say he wanted her and head here to get her. She got so happy with the idea she'd go to Marine Forest and marry him. It's been 2 weeks already. She whined and complained, wanting Prince Aqua. Then, hearing a knock at her door, she lit up with a bright smile. Sometime later, Tiara was making some desserts. Today was the day Aqua would finally come to see her again. She figured it had to be because the details were decided. She tried to remain optimistic because her father hadn't said anything. Surely, Aqua wouldn't bring bad news. She hoped he'd like the desserts she put together. He apologized for not seeing her as of late, saying the preparations had been taking all his time. She told him not to worry, but couldn't help but notice he seemed a bit down. They sat down and had tea. He told her the truth. The engagement had been settled. Lady Akari's, that is. Hearing this, Tiara's heart sank. Lady Akari and who? It wouldn't surprise her if he's been working to get his hands on the Holy Prayer. The walls were closing in as she envisioned the pain afflicting her all over again. She begged in her heart that her love wasn't being taken from her. He told her Lady Akari and Prince Heartknights were now formally engaged. Tiara opened her eyes in surprise. Aqua imagined she'd feel conflicted since Heartknights was the man who hurt her. But really, she was so thankful it wasn't Aqua. She admitted she thought he was getting engaged to Akari, and she was so scared. He asked why she would think that, because he'd never choose anyone but her. Holding her hands, he apologized for making her feel uneasy and told her, "Come now, don't cry." He suddenly kissed her sobbing face, then looked at her eye to eye. He told her, "Tiara, I missed you so," and the two kissed with a loving passion. She was so thankful he didn't choose Akari. He then told her he was taking her with him to Marine Forest and asked if she'd stay by his side for the rest of their lives. She told him of course, and they kissed again. At night, while she lay trying to sleep, she suddenly woke up by a bright light shining in her room. Akari greeted her. "Good evening." Tiara questioned why she was here, and Akari told her she's given it a lot of thought and asked if Tiara was a player in this game as well. Tiara gasped. Hearing game, she now figured Akari transmigrated just like her. Akari continued on, saying Tiara was the only thing that differed from the original game. Everything else went according to the game's events, but the ending didn't go right for her at all. Tiara tried playing coy, responding she didn't know what Akari was talking about. But Akari told her to stop playing dumb. She was planning to marry Prince Heartknights and be happy, but then came along her favorite, Prince Aqua. She couldn't believe it. But Aqua was the main route in the sequel. so she thought she'd be content with Heart Knights, her second favorite. But obviously, if she could marry Aqua, she'd rather have him. Akari could tell Tiara didn't know anything about the sequel, or about the adorable heroine in Marine Forest. Tiara gasped, and Akari was vindicated. She baited Tiara into admitting what she truly was. So now Tiara finally admitted she reincarnated. The last thing Tiara remembered was playing the game, but that's all. Akari was shocked Tiara died before even playing the sequel. She let out eccentric tears, telling Tiara, "You poor thing, there's no otome game out there anywhere near as amazing. Prince Heart Knights is great, but Prince Aqua in the sequel is so much better." The sequel's heroine is a duke's daughter in Marine Forest named Isilla, and just when Prince Aqua is feeling fed up with the fiancé the state chose for him, he meets her on the seashore. She thought the event CG for that scene was just gorgeous, having lost track of how many times she played. That aside, Akari made it evident she could use the holy prayer and believed surely if she told her beloved Prince Aqua that, she'd be able to marry him. She demanded Tiara break up with him. However, Tiara refused. Akari couldn't understand it. Akari thought she loved Aqua so much more than Tiara did, and she played the game so many times. Tiara argued back that Aqua was not a game. He was a person, and the way Akari was looking at things was ignoring his desires. Akari smirked, asking what Tiara was talking about. Since Aqua was the crown prince of a major country, once he found out, he'd obviously choose her. She raised her hand to Tiara's face and showed a spark of vicious thunder that cut Tiara's cheek. Akari had already thought up a scenario where Tiara got injured and her engagement called off because of it. Tiara shrank back with Akari's threat, but Akari told her not to worry. She'd only make her fall asleep a little. Tiara shouted she'd never get away with this, but Akari argued she was the heroine, so when this was all said and done, she'd get the happy ending. She shot another thunder spell, and with it imminent to strike Tiara, the two would be surprised to find a blue light protecting her. Aqua held Tiara from behind, thankful that he made it in time. Watching the light barrier around the two, Akari couldn't believe he was here. Glancing at the cut on Tiara's cheek, he apologized for not being on time after all. Tiara's father would enter the room, asking what was going on, and Aqua told Akari to explain. She told him it wasn't what he was thinking. She learned how to use the holy prayer, and now she was being forced to marry Heart Knights. She begged Aqua to save her, to take her to his kingdom. Marquis Clementine asked what gave her the right to say that, reminding her she said she loved Prince Heart Knights. Akari told them to stay out of this, and brought up that the holy prayer would make Aqua's kingdom more prosperous. Aqua told her he knew that Akari was in possession of the holy prayer, but that didn't mean she could underestimate him. He'd lead his kingdom to prosperity, even without her power. He told her he didn't need her. Picking up Tiara and a princess carry, he made it clear she was the only one he wanted. Akari fell to the floor, saying it was all lies. Not choosing her was inconceivable. Aqua called for Akari's apprehension, and with the magic binding cuffs, the knights took her away. He then asked Tiara if she had any other injuries, and she told him no, she was safe because he came to her rescue. He was glad and snuggled her close, telling her after all she'd been through, she was welcome to be a little more demanding. In the morning, Akari whined about having to be locked away. She was spared from more serious punishment because of Tiara, but was still a little sad. Shooting a spell, she watered a plant with her magic. Being restrained in this room by a barrier, that was the strongest magic she could use at the moment. Hearing a knock at the door, Heart Knights entered, and she was happy he came for her. He told her he wouldn't be staying for long, but she told him she was so bored, she had to have tea with him. Sitting down, he told her plainly they'd be married, and she answered, "Okay, understood." Her casual acceptance was odd to him, especially having heard she had feelings for Aqua's steed. Aqua was indeed her favorite, but Heart Knights was mistaken. She told him she loved him too. She knew she was being impudent, but loved everything about this ultimate game world. She told him again that she loved him a lot. Oh my god, she's an all routes type of girl. He smiled with relief, drank his tea, and decided to head home for now. Bruh, I don't care how hot a girl is, I could never accept being the second pick. Hit me with a lightning bolt instead. The parents said their goodbyes to our lovely main couple. Aqua promised to make Tiara happy. The two spoke of their happiness being together, and the parents chuckled seeing the lovebirds. They'd still miss their daughter though. Tiara told them that after a year of bridal training, she'd return here briefly for her debutante party, and they could look forward to lots of gifts from Marine Forest. It was a bittersweet goodbye, but Tiara's heart was pounding in a way like never before. As the carriage took off, the father cried tears of joy. Tiara was way too embarrassed before, but she wanted to try demanding Aqua's attention. She put her head on his shoulder. This was about as much as she could do at the moment. He then put his head on hers, telling her she really was just too cute. A letter suddenly appeared before them. It was from Akari to Tiara. It read, "Dear Lady Tiara, this letter is the strongest magic I'm able to use in the White Tower. I'm going to do my best to be happy with Prince Heartknights, so please find your happiness too." The two thought Akari's words were a bit too convenient, but Tiara's eyes widened, seeing at the bottom in Japanese, Akari also wrote, "If you lose to the sequel's heroine, I'll never forgive you." Tiara chuckled, wanting to keep this letter to cheer up in case she ever felt discouraged. She swore not to lose to the sequel heroine she hadn't even met yet. As their carriage arrived in Marine Forest territory, two men observing in the air wondered what kind of girl Aqua's brought home. The kingdom of Marine Forest is home to a human king and 3 fairy kings. Thanks to the Forest Fairy King, the land is blessed in abundance, and its fertility is guaranteed. Thanks to the Sky Fairy King, the air is very clean, and there is never a shortage of life-giving rain. Thanks to the Sea Fairy King, things like coral, pearls, and fish are abundant and bring prosperity to the kingdom. Everyone in the Marine Forest royal family is loved by the fairies and has received their blessing. The fairies' power is vital to supporting the kingdom. Tiara would undergo bridal training for the next year. She felt a bit sad about leaving her homeland, but since Aqua was with her, she knew she'd be happy. He told her to tell him if she ever felt troubled, but if she told him she wanted to go home, he didn't have the slightest shred of confidence he could let her go. Reaching the border, they could see roses on the side of Lapis Lazuli, a sky filled with bubbles and waves that resembled the ocean, and in their view was the beautiful coastline as well. It was Tiara's first time seeing the ocean. From the water emerged 3 cute little fairies, welcoming Aquasteed and Elliot home. Wanting to befriend them, Tiara tried to greet them, but they went, "Ew, I hate you." Aqua claimed fairies were fickle creatures. Despite not liking Tiara, they clamored in joy over Feline. The next to suddenly emerge was a blue-haired woman named Isilla Perlin. Tiara remembered her first name. Akari mentioned she was the sequel's heroine and the daughter of a duke. She happened to be swimming with the sea fairies and ended up all the way here. Getting greetings out of the way, Aqua explained the Perlins were the ducal family that oversaw the oceans. Isilla was skilled at raising fish, corals, and other things in the sea. She always helped Aqua with his work. Watching the two talk and act familiar with each other, Tiara wondered if it was possible she herself was the villainess here in the sequel too. She knew her own existence was definitely irregular and possibly completely removed from the story. Feeling a bit down, she decided to go rest in the carriage by herself, but really sat down by a tree to sulk over the heroine arriving so soon. She didn't want to lose Prince Aqua, but didn't know what face to make when she returned. She wasn't confident she could act cheerful. Seeing that she was troubled, 4 forest fairies appeared before her. One coughed and shot a little magic puffball. They were so excited to meet. They loved Tiara instantly. Elliot couldn't believe it. Forest fairies didn't normally like people, and yet here they were, blessing her. Tiara asked what he was doing here, and he apologized, but had actually been following at a distance the entire time. She assured him she was fine, and just wanted to stretch her legs. However, with the little fairies hearing she was down, they offered her a really tasty flower. They'd shove it into her mouth, and it was surprisingly delicious. Heading back to Aqua, he asked her to please not worry him, to take him with her next time. Tiara felt so fortunate. Instead of being so afraid of the heroine, she felt she should treasure all the wonderful people who supported her. At Marine Forest Castle, Tiara learned about the welcome party happening for her in 3 days. Aqua was also arranging a dress for her to wear. She was so excited, he suddenly pulled her in. It was hard for him to contain himself over how adorable she was. He groaned over the fact it'd be a whole year until they were married. He wanted to make her his wife right now. Tiara told him not to be like that. She was going to complete her bridal training and be helpful as his wife. The two would kiss, knowing things would be fine. Getting ready on the day of the welcoming party, Feline did Tiara's hair in the half-up style, popular in the kingdom right now. They didn't know what to do about a hair accessory though. That's when some other maids came in, presenting special flowers picked from the castle courtyard. These flowers were a specialty here. However, Tiara would ask if they had one with a deep blue color. She thought it might be nice to wear one the same color as Prince Aqua's hair. Unfortunately, that color of flower didn't grow this time of year, but suddenly, all the flowers would shift to the color she wanted. It was a gift from the forest fairies. The maids explained she might be the only one in the entire kingdom who's received the forest fairies' blessing. There were some who were blessed by the sea or sky fairies, but they never heard of anyone getting blessings from the forest fairies. At the party, the guests, king and queen, watched as the betrothed couple danced gracefully. Their moves were something like out of a fairy tale. Even getting their applause, Aqua couldn't help but take the time to compliment his adorable tiara, along with the blue roses in her hair that suited her so well. With them being a similar color to his hair, he felt as if he was under the illusion that all of her belonged to him. She would greet King Sotiris Marine Forest and Queen Lavina Marine Forest, who welcomed her pleasantly. She in turn promised to devote herself to her studies for the next year in hopes of being helpful to Aqua. She was looking forward to the future that lay ahead. Isilla would congratulate our couple next, and tell Tiara she wanted to become great friends with her, even inviting Tiara to visit her home sometime. Her mansion apparently sat next to the foremost ocean in the kingdom. Tiara played along with the pleasantries, but internally, she didn't want to get involved with the heroine at all. Heading to her mansion on another day, she really sulked over this whole ordeal. Her personal knight, Tarmo, would ask if something was wrong, but she assured him she was fine. Isilla welcomed her at her home and showed her the garden. The fountain was filled with so many pretty fish Tiara had never seen before. It contained only seawater, and the little fish were rare species that only lived in her ocean. Seeing the breathtaking view of the shore, Isilla offered to take Tiara into the ocean. Being blessed by sea fairies, she could use magic that made breathing underwater possible, and could even make a layer of air around Tiara's body so she could go into the water without getting her clothes wet. Tiara was so impressed by the sequel's heroine, she wondered if she stood a chance against a heroine loved by the fairies. Over tea, Isilla thought it was wonderful to learn Tiara was going to marry Aqua out of love. Tiara didn't understand. Did this mean Isilla didn't love Aqua? She would flip it back on Isilla, complimenting her beauty, and ask if she also wasn't surrounded by men who wouldn't leave her alone. Isilla didn't think so. She entrusted every aspect of her engagement to her father, and was happy so long as she could be in the sea. Embarrassed as she was to admit it, she had yet to fall in love with anyone. Tiara didn't think she was lying. She wondered how someone could be so pure, sweet, and modest. Standing by the shoreline, Isilla called for the sea fairies' blessings so they could dive into the blue depths. A bubble suddenly surrounded them. Tiara thought it was incredible. Taking a trip into the water, she was amazed to see the fish here weren't afraid of humans. Isilla's friendship with them made her seem like a sea goddess. She was glad Tiara was enjoying things down here. She suddenly told her she was going back up first to prepare some warm tea. Tiara said she'd go with her, but Isilla said it'd be fine, and she could enjoy herself down here. Uh-oh, I'm sensing danger. Shortly, Tiara would rise up from the water and spot Isilla chatting with Aqua. She saw Aqua touch Isilla's face and quickly sank down. She couldn't understand. Was this the power of the game? Did she get between the two of them after all? She decided she wouldn't run and burst out, determined to get her feelings across. Aqua explained he was here to pick her up, and Tiara was pouty, telling Aqua not to leave her alone, grabbing him aggressively for a hug. While getting a tour of the castle from Tarmo, she'd spot Aqua chatting with Isilla again. Tarmo was sure they were discussing work. As always, Tiara wondered why on the terrace when he said he'd be in his office all day today. Seems like they were both heading back now. Out by the garden, the forest fairies would joyfully greet Tiara. She offered them some cookies and gushed, watching them cutely nibble them down. The green-haired fairy would call her over and open a portal. Their king was just up ahead. Going in, the path behind her suddenly closed, and then she'd be teleported to a solemn room. She was taken aback, meeting the king of the forest fairies. Tiara would grace herself in honor of meeting the forest fairy king. He told her to call him Keith, and remarked that the forest fairies seemed to have taken quite the liking to her. He had her lift her head and noticed her soul was most unusual. Unstable, but also beautiful. It smelled nice as well. Tiara turned, lifting the treats she baked, thinking this was probably what he was really smelling. With her repeatedly referring to him as King, he insisted again she just call him Keith. She got nervous. He seemed quite egotistical. Eating one cookie, he noticed it was laced with her magic. It tasted quite good. The reason he didn't like titles was because, unlike humans, fairies were free. They went by whatever names they liked. Tiara admired that. She wished she could live like a fairy too, because humans had many things that tied them down. And lately, it's been weighing on her heart. Keith put his hand on her head for assurance, telling her if anything happened, he'd be her strength. She was thankful. Elsewhere, Aqua was meeting with Isilla again at her request. He was thankful for all her help. She suggested a hair ornament and designed it for Tiara, because he wanted to give her the best one she'd like. Isilla envied her. The man Tiara loved was so genuinely fond of her. Tarmo would suddenly enter to report Tiara's disappearance. Keith would learn Tiara was the future queen, but hearing it wasn't set in stone and she was only Aqua's fiancée, he thought humans were so difficult. She told him Prince Aquasteed was very kind and had the unwavering support of his people, that he was a far more wonderful man than she deserved. She suddenly realized she'd been here for a while and needed to head back. Keith would pull her in close and teleport her back to her room. She was impressed he could use a difficult teleportation spell so easily. Happening to enter her room, Aqua drew his blade quickly, pointing and telling Keith to get away from Tiara. Keith was unwavering, telling Tiara that he'd be a better match for her than Aqua. But she told the Fairy King to please stop. Realizing who he was, Aqua kneeled before him and apologized for lifting his blade. However, he'd get up and twirl Tiara close to his side, pointing out that getting close to his fiancée seemed like an undignified thing for the Fairy King to do. Keith could tell Aqua loved her a lot, and she blamed him for causing this whole misunderstanding. A trifling matter for the Fairy King. He kissed her hand, making her gasp, and told her if life got too hard, she could call him any time. Aqua gave a sullen look with Keith gone. He suddenly picked Tiara up and sitting down on the couch. Tiara apologized for making him worry. She could tell he was angry. He brought his face close and nibbled her ear, then whispered, "Honestly, I'm so jealous." That's why he was angry. It was because she called the Fairy King by name without any title. She wondered if Aqua wanted the same, but was that even allowed? She thought maybe with just the two of them. She uttered his name and he smiled, embracing her tightly. Ending her bridal lessons for the day, Aqua would suddenly enter. Tiara's teacher praised her. She completed 6 months worth of work in 1 month. All that remained was 1 week of lectures on fairies, and then they were finished. Aqua met privately with Tiara after. He invited her to see his work up close so she could understand it. She wasn't sure about that, given she was just his fiancée and had little knowledge on this kingdom's affairs. But he told her that was no problem. Even as queen, she wasn't likely to have much involvement in his work, but knowing about it wasn't a bad thing either. Tiara was still hard at work. She'd been studying every evening. Feline suggested she rest for tonight, but Tiara couldn't stop. She wanted to be useful to Aqua, especially since Lady Isilla was so frequently in his office, even if only for work. Isilla was only 14, yet she already did such diligent work. Tiara wanted to be useful to him too. On another day of making sweets, the fairies would greet Tiara, offering her all kinds of ingredients she could use. Tiara fed one of the flower petals they picked to Feline, and she gushed over the burst of flavor that came from the forest fairies' findings. It had its own natural sweetness with no bitterness. Tiara presented the cake to Aqua and Isilla during office hours. Everyone enjoyed the delicious flavor, but then a maid would bring in a cake made from Isilla's family chef's latest recipe. A little awkward, since Isilla had no idea Tiara was making them cake today too. But Tiara didn't mind. For her, the more sweets, the better. Aqua loved how happy Tiara looked eating sweets, and said he could watch her forever. Noah would ask Aqua which cake he liked more, and with him not answering right away, Keith suddenly appeared, asking what was there to think about. Tiara's tasted much better. Keith licked the frosting off his thumb, then went to pat Tiara's head, telling her he'd come again for more. Aqua was getting angry, reminding Keith he didn't like when he touched his fiancée. Keith just smirked and disappeared. By evening, Noah could see Aqua was still eating Tiara's cake, even though he didn't care much for sweets. He asked why Aqua couldn't just say he liked Tiara's more. Aqua replied he needed to keep Isilla in a good mood, because if it soured, the sea fairies would feel it, and the seas would rage. But as long as she was happy, the seas would share their bounty with the kingdom. This sounds like a really major liability. Tiara suddenly woke up shouting because she remembered the Dripping with Handsomeness CG. It was the only sample still revealed for the sequel before she died, from an event where Prince Aqua was walking in the ocean on a date, fell in, and got all wet. She thought he looked so hot. But then, she remembered he was on a date with the heroine. This event progressed his romance with Isilla. She couldn't guess when that event would happen, but thought it should be fine as long as Aqua didn't go into the ocean with her. But then, the next day, he'd tell Tiara he was going to inspect the ocean with Isilla because a new species of coral appeared there. Tiara let her emotions show in her face. Aqua could tell something was wrong and told her she didn't need to hold back with him. She told him since it was official business, she couldn't be selfish about it. But he told her not to finish her sentence and continually pressed her lower lip, adding that he wouldn't stop until he told her. So she told him to please not go to the ocean, and he responded he wouldn't, offering to have Elliot do it instead. Tiara was more important to him, after all. Isilla was perfectly fine with that, and so Aqua would go retrieve Elliot. He told Tiara to come with him so they could go see the lovely rose garden along the way together. Isilla spotted some white roses that would match Tiara's hair perfectly, and going to pick some high up ones, she accidentally stumbled back, and Aqua would rush to catch her, falling into the close fountain's water. The two girls would stare with him drenching wet. He was dripping with handsomeness. Tiara was worried. This event that was supposed to happen at the ocean was happening here. Was the game's power absolute? She worried the progression of the game was impossible for her to change, and ran away, watching as Isilla wiped his face. Behind the door, Tiara realized she messed up after telling herself she wouldn't run away anymore, but she couldn't help but feel anxious and question if her prince's heart was still leaning towards her. She wondered how she could become stronger and accepted if she just kept looking up, her tears would dry in no time. That's when Keith would appear to wipe her tears. chuckling. He asked if Aqua made her cry. She tried to deny it, but Keith could tell her heart ached. He told her if she was suffering, she could just come to him. She objected, but he pulled her in, reminding her fairies were free before teleporting them away. Aqua entered her room, finding no trace except for the petals left by the Fairy King. The fairies welcomed their king and Tiara back to his domain. She got off of him and asked what was the meaning of this. The king snapped his fingers, summoning a sunflower bed, and shoved her down to lie down and rest. Since she looked awful right now, the fairies would help by laying a blanket on her. She told Keith to take her back, that she'd rest in her own room, and to this, Keith would place his palm on her head and knock her out. He didn't think she'd fall asleep so easily. While they loved Tiara, he knew all about the girl loved by the sea fairies. He thought they were such a pain. The sea fairies grew extremely attached. The one time another girl loved by them was in trouble, the ocean stained red, the fish vanished, and the coral withered. That was centuries ago. The knights were searching all over for Tiara. Aqua was frantic and desperate to find her. He went down to the basement in order to read the royal family's forbidden texts and hopefully learn where the fairy king might be. He'd learn the path to the forest fairy king's throne begins in the castle, more specifically, the queen's chamber, but he didn't get why. Keith would appear behind Aqua, pointing out his desperation. Of course, it was because he abducted his consort. Keith wasn't planning to do that at first, but changed his mind. Aqua told Keith to stop joking, but he wasn't. He told Aqua he'd be taking her. Aqua rushed at Keith, but the king disappeared. Aqua was frustrated, all while Tiara continued to rest and recover. The path to the Fairy King has been spoken of only among the royal family of Marine Forest for generations. It is a light of hope that one loved by the king left for their descendants. This was Aqua's destination to find Tiara. Aqua cast his magic over the forest portrait. Elliot watched, thinking about how he was always so calm and collected, but not when it came to his beloved Tiara Rose. He wanted to support his lord. The two entered on the quest to bring Tiara back. They wandered the somewhat dark yet impressive path. Elliot had been trying to inspect the area using magic, but it wasn't working. Aqua knew if it was difficult for him, it'd be difficult for anyone. Aqua stepped on a tree root, and more came slithering from above. Aqua jumped back as the roots pierced the ground he had been standing in. These thorns made it clear the Fairy King wanted them not to get anywhere near him. Remembering Keith telling him he'd be taking Tiara, it irritated Aqua. He pressed on faster, despite the potential danger, because he wanted to bring Tiara back as soon as possible. Suddenly, the trees would close the way forward. Roots would burrow out from the ground and attack, but the two would ward them off with their swords. Briar bulbs shot towards them, but Aqua cut them. He then shot his magic and cleared the way forward. The sleeping Princess Tiara finally woke up. The fairies floated just above, offering some fruit to her. They wanted to play. She got up, remembering she was taken here against her will. She'd learned the king wasn't here at the moment, so she'd indulge in a strawberry. They'd bring her so many more fruits after. She just kept eating and eating. She couldn't turn down their goodwill. It eventually became too much though. The fairies cheered over the fact she loved it regardless. It was all pleasant, but she still wanted to return home. So they'd show her the way, but not really. They'd show her the kitchen Keith made for her instead. It contained plenty of flowers and nuts, usable for seasoning. Tiara took sample tastes, describing pink flowers as sugar, blue ones as salt. The red flowers were spicy, and she bet the yellow ones were pepper. They wanted her to make them some sweets. And even with her trying to get back to Aqua, they would beg and plead with sad faces. Now she knew she couldn't leave until she baked for them. Mixing her batter, the fairies would put some pink flowers in. These flowers weren't as sweet as sugar, but she assumed it'd be fine. Tiara wished she had these seasonings, but didn't think it'd be a good idea to ask for them from the guy who kidnapped her. And eventually, the cute cupcakes were finished. The fairies enjoyed the cupcakes and promised to lead Tiara to the exit. When she opened the door, she found a throne room instead. It seemed lonely somehow. Tiara felt the need to get back as soon as possible. Aqua might be worried about her. He saw her with Keith, and she didn't want there to be any misunderstandings. The fairies asked who Aqua was, and she told them her fiancé, the man she loved very much. He made his love clear for her, yet the compelling force of an otome game was a terrifying thing. Tiara gasped, getting caught off guard with Keith grabbing her hands from behind, saying, "I really don't understand humans at all." He'd shipped to picking her up in a princess carry. She told him to stop as he sat on the throne. He asked why she wanted to go home, and she, of course, didn't want to trouble Prince Aqua any further or be a burden to him. Keith thought about how just by being loved by the forest fairies meant she was contributing plenty already to the kingdom. He thought humans were such a burden and told her she wouldn't have to wait because he was here. Aqua opened the doors, finding Tiara in Keith's arms. He told Keith to let her go and drew his blade, saying he'd take her by force if needed. Tiara pleaded with Aqua not to, but even if it was the Fairy King, Aqua would not allow anyone to lay hands on Tiara. Keith scoffed, reminding Aqua he could already have all the women he could ever want. Aqua snapped that the only one he needed was Tiara. But then Keith said, "Don't make me laugh. Tiara's felt uneasy all this time, and it was you who made her feel that way." Tiara begged Keith to stop, but Keith replied she shouldn't interfere in a battle between men. W misogyny. He flashed right in front of Aqua, asking if he really thought a mere human could defeat the Fairy King. Aqua wouldn't back down though. He began slashing continuously, but Keith dodged with no effort. He thought Aqua wasn't half bad. Aqua knew a king needed to be strong enough to hold up his kingdom and protect what's important. He went for another slash and couldn't believe it. Keith stopped his blade with a simple fan. Keith said it was his turn now and shot a destructive gale with the wave of his fan. It completely broke the wall behind them, exposing the trees and sea outside. Aqua realized the Fairy King's palace was on the edge of a cliff. Keith confirmed it was the tallest mountain, one where he could look down upon everything within the kingdom. Aqua illuminated his blade in water magic. Keith was quite impressed. He shot 2 water blasts, but Keith deflected with ease. Aqua called for wind and rose up for a falling slash that Keith still managed to block like it was nothing, and shot Aqua back, causing him to drip with blood. Tiara let out a gasping shriek. Aqua went in for another, while Keith prepared his magic as well, but Tiara would suddenly get in between them. Keith reacted fast by shooting to ward off Aqua's direct strike, but Tiara got hit from the backlash and shot out of the hole in the wall. Aqua dived after her, using wind magic to catch up and hold her. In this moment, it was purely romantic. At last, he finally got to hold his beloved again. He admitted to making her feel uneasy because of the strength he lacked and apologized, but she told him that wasn't true. He made time for her every single day, and she was the one in the wrong for being jealous of Lady Isilla. He had no idea Tiara was jealous. He kissed her all over her head. She couldn't believe he was fawning over her at a time like this. They're literally falling to death. He apologized again. Despite being imprudent, it made him happy knowing she was jealous over him. The two kissed, and he told her to brace for impact. Oddly, even in the situation they were in, she didn't feel scared. She knew Aqua would keep her safe. Aqua called for the fairies of the sky. The Sky King thought Aqua was always so reckless, but he had no choice. He gave his blessing, and now Aqua and Tiara were floating upright. Aqua owed the Sky Fairies a debt for this. He gained the wings to fly, and now the two could watch as the sun set over the kingdom. It was beautiful. Tiara knew Prince Aqua was trying his hardest to protect this beautiful kingdom, and she wanted to support this place with him. She began to weep with joy, admitting she'd been worrying over something so trivial. But from now on, she wanted to work even more by his side. She kissed him with all her heart. The two men endured an hour of Tiara lecturing them to never do this again. They were sorry. Aqua promised they'd spend more time together from now on, while Keith supposed he'd just have to visit her more frequently. She somehow didn't feel they learned the right lessons. Aqua then told Keith she'd be busy spending time with him and would unfortunately be too busy for official business, such as audiences with fairy kings. Keith thought Aqua had sure gotten cheeky in such a short time. He'd just have to visit her at night. Then, Aqua countered he'd simply share a bedroom with her. She had to tell them to stop again, and wondered if there was any way for them to get along. The fairies would suddenly cut in to bring a cupcake, and Tiara had her answer. If they ate some sweets, maybe they'd feel happy and get along. But there was only one cupcake, so she broke it in half, and the men's jaws dropped. Tiara explained she made this with the fairies earlier. She wanted the two guys to work together to make this kingdom prosperous, so she was offering them both a piece. They both approached her, saying it wouldn't be enough. Keith patted her head, but Aqua swatted it away, reminding him not to touch his fiancée. Aqua then grabbed a flower from his cupcake and offered for her to eat it, as a gesture of her promise to help support him. She enjoyed it. Keith then did the same. The flowers gifted by both of them tasted doubly sweet. The two then enjoyed their cupcakes. She was surprised, since they were fighting just moments ago. She thought it was so funny. Maybe they had more in common than she thought. A fairy then said it was like Tiara was king. She got nervous thinking that it might be true. It was like she had two kings at her service now. The guys began to laugh, even though she thought it was no laughing matter. Wow. Tiara was happy to finally return home to her parents after a whole year. They were back because she had finished her bridal training. They wanted to hear about all her endeavors back in Marine Forest Kingdom, but would be interrupted by a maid announcing the arrival of a visitor. They weren't expecting to hear it was Akari and Heart Knights. Tiara's father demanded they be sent away at once. However, she actually wanted to speak with Akari. She couldn't blame them for being angry, given everything that happened last year, but she needed more info about the sequel. Her father sighed, but allowed it, only on the condition that Prince Aquasteed accompany her. She was sorry for being so demanding, but he didn't mind. He loved listening to her demands. Akari greeted Tiara boisterously, saying, "Long time no see," like nothing ever happened. They were glad to see her too. She rambled on about how she's been working hard with Heart Knights since they were long past the ending. She felt like she was playing a new game. Tiara could see she hadn't changed at all. Akari put herself aside to congratulate the two on their marriage. She could see it. Her eyes sparkled with pride, knowing Tiara had beaten out the sequel's heroine. Sitting down together, Akari asked if Tiara had any troubles this past year, and as expected, Tiara admitted the sea fairies didn't seem to like her. Akari knew this would happen, which was why she brought these earrings as her wedding gifts. Their protective charms she added the holy prayer to. One was pink, like Tiara's hair, while the other was dark blue, like Aqua's. Akari figured if she was going to wear something, it should be in the color of the person she loved. That's why she wore yellow earrings. Although things were still awkward, she thought Prince Heart Knights had been adorable lately. Aqua didn't mind all the pleasantries, but he was just surprised Tiara seemed so friendly with Akari. Tiara thought he had a point, since she attacked her last year. But Akari thought they were partners when it came to taking down the sequel's heroine. This got Tiara chuckling, while Heart Knights was none the wiser. He was glad to see Tiara in good spirits, but he wanted to hear the truth from her someday. He could see clearly she'd been holding on to something she couldn't tell him. He put his fingers on her lips, saying, "If you keep me in the dark for too long, be prepared for the consequences." Akari thought it was fine they were flirty, but asked that they do it when she wasn't around. Either way, she wished for their happiness, and their meeting ended pleasantly. Seeing the parents off the following day, Tiara expressed that she was truly happy. Her father had raised her strictly, and her mother helped her experience many things. She told them all of that gave her strength now. They, in turn, were so happy everything paid off, and they embraced in a heartfelt goodbye once again. The next time they'd meet, it'd be at her wedding in Marine Forest. We moved to the night before the wedding. Tiara stared at her hand, fixated on where the wedding ring would go. Feline shed tears of joy. She was so excited for her lady. They'd suddenly hear a knock at the door. They had an unexpected guest. Tiara hoped it wasn't Isilla the day before her wedding. Unfortunately, Feline told her it was. The two would sit over tea. Isilla apologized for visiting so abruptly and congratulated Tiara. Tiara was surprised to hear she didn't come to stop the wedding. Isilla would just say it outright. She called out that Tiara assumed she had feelings for Aqua, something Tiara wasn't expecting. Isilla always believed that her father would find her a good man to marry. Hearing she didn't understand the concept of love, Tiara wondered if it was because she existed. Originally, Isilla was supposed to nurture her love with Aqua as one of her conquerable routes. Tiara wanted to console her, but Akari told her to stop right there. Once again, she congratulated Tiara on her marriage, and then quickly greeted Isilla. She stared at Isilla with observational intent. She was just like the game. Tiara asked Akari not to be rude, and Akari apologized. She didn't know she was making Isilla uncomfortable. Stepping aside, Akari explained to Tiara she wanted to see the lucky girl who got to be the sequel's heroine. She thought life had to be enjoyed, but could tell Isilla wasn't enjoying it at all. Even though this was still better than losing Aqua to her, Isilla thought they looked like good friends. And Akari said, that's right. That's why she was so worried about Tiara, especially because Isilla was always hanging around Prince Aqua. She told her not to get too close to her friend's husband. Isilla gasped, then apologized, saying she should have been more considerate. Tiara told her not to worry and for Akari to stop saying things like that. Akari apologized, but not with enthusiasm. Feline would let Tiara know Aqua was arriving soon, and Isilla bid them farewell. The sadness in her smile was visible. Taking her leave, Tiara saw Isilla's dark blue ribbon. She asked if Akari had come here to say something to Isilla, but no, she was just here to see how the sequel ended. Tiara didn't understand what she meant by that, but before she could learn anything, Akari flashed out. Many guests gathered for Tiara and Aqua's wedding. Akari's words weighed on Isilla's mind. She never meant to get too close to Aqua. She didn't have any romantic feelings for him. She thought he was so brilliant and mature, completely out of her reach, but now reacted to the thought without control. Tiara asked Feline if she looked strange in her wedding dress. Feline told her she was the most beautiful in the world, and she needed to be more confident. Getting ready to head out, the thought of Isilla flashed, while Akari's words about the sequel ending rang in her mind. She wondered if something was going to happen during the wedding. The organ played music you'd expect in the wedding hall. Tiara's father was crying. She entered, joyful seeing Aqua in his white suit with the earring that matched her hair color. Isilla wondered why her head hurt so much. She wasn't in love with Aquasteed, but couldn't understand, and now questioned if she loved him after all. That her feelings for him were more than just respect. She was horrified. She jolted up, but Akari refused to let her do it. Akari pointed out Isilla really did love Aquasteed, even though she tried to deny it. But now, Isilla wondered if this pain in her chest was love. Akari figured this would happen because the sequel game had an event where the romantic interest married someone else. But the heroine could intervene and stop it. The condition to unlock it? Wear a ribbon in your love interest's color to the wedding. Akari admitted she loved intervening in the marriage events, since they got the heart racing. It was where the groom chooses you over his bride. These fantasies need to be locked up. Akari wasn't going to allow anyone to ruin her friend's wedding though. Keith thought it was such a coincidence. He agreed with her. Bro came out of nowhere. Akari and Isilla were surprised. He told Isilla if she tried anything, he wouldn't let it slide. She promised she wouldn't, even though staring at the two made her heart ache more. She really couldn't be by Aqua's side. Tiara heard someone crying. She looked back. Her assumption was right. Isilla really did love Aqua. I can't get over Akari signaling like she did her job. Aqua took notice of Isilla crying, the thing Tiara feared. She'd been so scared about whether this wedding would actually happen. She kept asking herself what she'd do if Aqua chose Isilla at the last moment. But even if she was standing in the way of what should be their true love, she didn't want to lose him. She called out to Aqua, and he turned, seeing tears in her eyes. She closed in on his chest. Losing wasn't an option because she loved him more than anyone. She wanted to be with him forever. He could see he made her feel uneasy again. He suddenly picked her up and gently carried her to face Isilla. He kneeled before to thank her for attending their wedding. She congratulated the two, beginning to tear up again. Tiara squeezed at him as he told Isilla Tiara was the one most precious to him. Dang, bruh, you really gotta rub it in here? He apologized to Isilla, and she told him no need to worry, and that while she did admire him, she's moved past it now, and told him to go be happier than anyone in the world. She was thankful he taught her what love felt like. While walking Tiara back, he told her she was so cute when she cried, he just wanted to eat her up. It made her smile. Before the priest, he presented Tiara her wedding ring filled with his magic. She accepted it and he put it on her, promising to hold on to her forever. She promised the same and then kissed his head. He then kissed her back, with loving thoughts of treasuring her for life. The hall suddenly lit with a green glow, like stars were raining down on them. Keith cheered for the next king and queen, giving his blessing for their health and happiness, and peace for the kingdom. Everyone was amazed to see the Forest Fairy King's blessing. The newly married couple exited the hall to a crowd waiting outside cheering them. Keith was jealous. He thought Tiara looked so lovely when she commanded the flowers. He wanted her so bad. Akari scolded he'd make Aqua angry by talking like that. He snapped his fingers, and the petals began to glow pink. Tiara started crying. She was so happy and blessed, the tears wouldn't stop flowing. Now that the game was over, Tiara could truly live in reality from this point on. No more living at the mercy of the game, except at the bottom of the ocean, where there was one more princess who said, "Love is worthless." One evening, Aqua was staring out the window, just thinking about the wonderful wedding he had just had with Tiara. He heard her knock on the door, and his wife entered, apologizing for taking so long. It's just her father's stories of the past never seemed to run dry. He thought she must be tired, but it was no big deal for her. She thought it was lovely to have so many people congratulating her. She felt truly blessed. He then surprised her with a present, a coral ribbon he designed himself. Putting it on, she looked absolutely dazzling. He'd pull her in close for a warm embrace. He wanted to touch her like this forever. She felt the same. Peace wouldn't be maintained, however. A girl by the beach would point out to her mother that the ocean had a rising darkness from within. A while later, Feline and Tiara's new dress designer were marveling over Tiara in a new outfit. Tiara was fine and all, but thought her designer was going a little overboard in the quantity. While touching up Tiara's dress, the designer would point out the rumors in the kingdom about something strange going on with the sea recently. She hadn't seen it herself, but heard its color was a bit different from usual. Perhaps there was something going on with the sea fairies. With Tiara's animal cookies finished baking, Aqua would sneak up behind to snuggle up to her. He was so affectionate, and she loved it so much, because she alone was the one who got to see his expression like this. They've lived together for a year, and their wedding was over, but he still made her heart race. She offered him one of the cookies she made, but he nodded no, and then opened his mouth going, "Ah." She could hardly hold back gushing over how cute he was. She told him just this once, and when he ate it, he licked her fingers. She was flush, as he told her that she was sweeter than any cookie. Despite her embarrassment, he pointed out they were married now. So what was the problem? Later, Tiara would again notice something was off. Some of her cookies she baked were missing. The same thing happened last night. Feline would enter, and after hearing the situation, she wondered if it could have been the forest fairies. However, Tiara couldn't imagine the fairies taking them without asking. They'd take a glance back at the cookie plate, and were at a loss, seeing more missing. She'd go ask the forest fairies, but it wasn't them. The king would be mad if they took any without permission. She offered them some from her basket anyway, and soon after, continued on her way. That evening, Aqua returned a bit late from a busy day and gave Tiara a loving kiss on the head. He asked her how her day was, and she told him it was fine, omitting anything involving the missing cookies, because she didn't want to trouble him. However, he already knew strange things had been happening around her lately from Tarmo, who had learned from Feline. Tarmo mentioned Tiara's reluctance to speak about this, and Aqua thought it was just like her to do this. Staring eye to eye, thinking she was so precious, he wondered how he could get her to tell him. He suddenly picked her up, and seeing his bright smile, she totally knew he knew now, and he was going to pamper her until she told him what happened today. With her beginning to speak, he looked sad, going, "Aw, you're caving already?" She gasped, telling him to please not act so disappointed. After hearing what happened, he thought it made sense to believe this was the work of fairies rather than humans. He decided to look into it, so she wouldn't have to worry. Putting her worries aside, he found this to be important, because her cookies belonged to him after all. Hearing even her cookies, she remarked he was so greedy, and he told her that's right. The moment he made her his, he decided he wasn't going to hold back anymore, and told her to leave everything to him. The next day, during her usual baking session, Tiara spotted a sea fairy quickly escape the faucet, take one of her cookies, and rush back through. Now she for sure knew the culprit. At the Sea Fairy Kingdom, the fairies presented the stolen cookie for their king. They were a little down since Isilla seemed so sad lately. She used to be happy all the time, but now she almost never smiled. The king told the fairy to throw the cookie away. She disliked sweets made by humans. Then again uttered, "Love is worthless." The sea bubbled like the beginning of a furious torrent. On a carriage ride, Tiara would point out the strange happenings, knowing the sea fairies didn't like her. She was happy they wanted to eat her sweets, but the feeling was complicated. They were on the way to see Isilla in hopes of finding something out. Isilla was informed on everything ahead of time and apologized for making them worry. She recounted by the sea her weeping over her rejection. She never knew it could hurt so badly. She promised to give Aqua and Tiara her blessing, but at the time, she couldn't stop crying. The fairies watching her weep felt sad as well. They wanted to bully Tiara, but Isilla didn't mean for this to happen. She didn't tell the two, and instead decided she'd go see the Sea Fairy King. They had never met before, but she knew how to get there. She just asked for a bit of time. Tiara apologized for troubling her, and Isilla burst out, saying she was the reason the sea fairies stole her cookies. She clenched her dress, not saying more, and Tiara knelt by her side, telling her she didn't need to force herself to tell them. It didn't trouble Tiara too much, because she could just make more cookies. Isilla felt more assured and promised to resolve this. On another day, Tiara was having a tea party with some noble ladies. They were honored to be invited. Many of the women here truly admired her. The days passed, and Tiara thought about how in the world of an otome game, the world's history had such a distant past. It was so interesting. It made her realize even though it was a game, it was still reality, and that she was really living her own life. A strong gale would blow past her, turning the page, and a gentleman's voice would ask if she saw something interesting in her history book. She answered the dessert baking competitions, and turned with surprise to see a beautiful person next to her with light blue hair and golden eyes. But what was more surprising was she didn't sense him at all. Tarmo was still standing guard, so how was it possible for someone to get so close without anyone noticing? Tiara thought he was so pretty. He introduced himself as Creo, the Sky Fairy King. She apologized for her impudence, but he assured her there was no need to be so formal. He observed her treats with an open mouth, and she offered him some. One bite of the cheese tart, and he loved the delicious taste. Aqua had received the blessing of Sky, so Creo was here to see his princess. Tiara was worried at first that he might brand her as unworthy, but he assured her there was no need to worry. He was glad Aqua's princess was such a nice girl. He commented on the nice taste her treats had, being laced with her magic. Fairies didn't need to eat, but he envied her for being able to make such delicious treats. Hearing this, she offered to make him some anytime if he wanted. After that, Creo started attending her tea parties often, and he'd get pouty, saying he was finally starting to enjoy some girls-only time with Tiara, and Aqua was ruining it. Creo tried to hug Tiara, but Aqua would grab her close. The Sky Fairy King didn't think it was fair he hogged all the attention. However, Aqua told Creo not to get closer than necessary. Creo argued that if he kept tying her down though, she'd get sick of him, and to this, Aqua thought that wasn't possible. Tiara was so precious, he'd never let her go. Diving into the sea, Isilla felt the waves more intense than usual. Something really was off. She thought the waters looked murkier than usual, but also thought she was just imagining it. A bright light shined, and she suddenly found herself before the Sea Fairy Palace. She'd go inside and enter the king's chamber, where King Pearl welcomed her. Isilla graced herself, and Pearl asked what her business was here. Isilla told her it was about Tiara, and Pearl glanced over to the trash. Isilla could now see all of Tiara's treats were being disposed of here. Isilla asked why, and Pearl said the obvious. She absolutely hated Tiara Rose. Isilla didn't understand. She asked why Pearl hated Lady Tiara Rose, and Pearl's answer was a single stern glance. It caused Isilla to remember the fairies wanting to bully Tiara for taking her true love away from her. Isilla brought this point up, and Pearl let off an intense aura, saying, "Don't let the fact you have the fairies' blessing get to your head." Isilla bowed in apology for angering the Sea Fairy King, and after asking about Crail and learning Isilla had no idea who that was, Pearl dismissed her, sending her away. Pearl thought about how Crail said he'd have tea with her. It pissed her off, just thinking about him spending time with Tiara. She considered using her potion to change things. Aqua and Tiara would learn about what happened during Isilla's meeting. She actually dived down several more times to try to meet with the king, and was turned away from her shrine each time after. Tiara told her not to worry. It's not like her cookies were that important. They'd be interrupted by a visit from Crail with Keith standing in the back. Keith wasn't a fan of being ignored as of late. He heard Tiara's been having tea with just Crail a lot as of recent. He'd go to pat Tiara's head, and Aqua slapped his hand away, the two having their usual pretty boy standoff. Crail then presented Tiara with a gift of coral tea. It was his favorite. He got it from Pearl. He brewed the tea, turning the water a nice coral color. Crail tried to exchange pleasantries, but Aqua's usual possessiveness kicked in, telling Crail not to get too close to his wife. Crail didn't think he was any fun at all. Keith chuckled, telling Aqua he'd better keep a tight hold or he'd take her. Tiara squealed back that she only had eyes for her prince. Aqua felt the same and gave her a light peck on the cheek. Crail could see the two were head over heels for each other. He envied that, and so did Isilla, letting off a hurt gaze towards them. Crail's tea began to glow, and out popped King Pearl. She turned to face Crail, and he thought he might get to see her if he used the tea. Both Aqua and Tiara were surprised to learn Pearl was the Sea Fairy King and graced themselves before her. Pearl would not return the greeting so kindly, however. With one glance of the fact Crail was sharing the tea she gave him, she called him a fool and dipped out. Isilla also took her leave as well. Crail explained that Pearl said she hated men, so he started dressing more feminine with the hopes they could be friends. Keith told him surely dressing like a woman wouldn't make her like him, and Crail knew that, but it was the only way he could think of. Tiara, however, was certain his idea that Pearl hated him was a mistake. She'd feel bad if their misunderstanding continued, and also, she could tell Keith knew and should have told him earlier. Still unenlightened, Crail told them he hadn't given up. He'd just keep closing the distance between him and Pearl little by little. He thought about getting her a gift sometime, and asked Tiara to go shopping with him to help. That evening, Tiara soaked in her bath, still thinking about how Pearl didn't hate Crail at all, and more likely, actually liked him. She questioned if seeing her enjoy the tea with the others made Pearl upset, and Pearl burst out of a water bowl, saying, "That's right!" Tiara was not expecting this. Pearl asked what she was plotting, and what that tea party was for. She assumed Tiara was trying to win over the other kings with her sweets, having ulterior motives. Tiara then invited Pearl to join them, tempting Pearl with the idea Crail would be there, and despite Pearl's reluctance, she almost considered it. Shortly though, she'd silenced Tiara and warned her not to get any closer to Crail before leaving. The next day, Tiara would apologize to Crail. She told him she couldn't go with him to choose a gift for Pearl. The skies went from bright to gloomy when he asked why. Thunder struck as he suggested she didn't want to anymore. Tiara answered when choosing a gift for the woman you like, it probably wasn't wise to go shopping for it with another woman. She herself would want such a gift chosen personally by the man buying it. Just like when Aqua got her the coral hair ornament, she assumed Pearl would be happier this way. Crail took Tiara's words to heart, and the skies cleared. He thanked Tiara for giving him this wonderful insight. While he'd look around a local jewelry shop, Pearl would listen in on him from the shop's water jar decor. Crail sought advice from the store's owner on what kind of gift to buy, and ended up picking a nice coral hairpin with Pearl in mind. Unfortunately, he'd find some matching flower pins he'd say out loud would suit Tiara perfectly. Pearl was getting so angry with him being so happy about this, she sent torrents everywhere, and the land shook enough for Crail to feel it. Seeing the seas were getting rough, he questioned what could possibly be wrong with Pearl. Isilla was getting worried as well. She wanted to go inform Aqua, but the fairies popped up, letting her know their king was acting scary. Pearl then popped up next, telling Isilla not to go acting on her own. She declared her hatred for Tiara for leading Crail on, and told Isilla she must take Aqua away from her. Pearl bestowed Isilla the secret elixir of the sea. If Isilla added 1 drop of her blood to it and made Aqua drink it, his heart would belong to her. Isilla shook. This was a love potion, and she could use it to make Aqua love her. She knew it was wrong. She couldn't just toy with Aqua's feelings as she pleased, but she wanted it. Crail suddenly appeared above them, asking what was wrong, but Pearl told him she had nothing to say, and quickly left. He approached Isilla and asked her to tell him what happened. After hearing Pearl told her that Tiara was leading him on, he thought the idea to be ridiculous. Isilla was about to mention the potion, but then he brought up how clear it was that Tiara and Aqua loved each other. That caused Isilla to snap, and she decided not to say anything about the potion. During another baking session, Tiara decided to use her forest fairy blessing on her cookies. Her magic was getting stronger by the day, and she'd use it to make her sweets taste even better. She'd put together an aqua seed cookie. She wanted to make cookies after everyone. Next, when making her Crail cookie, she wondered if he was able to buy Pearl her gift. And then behind them, Pearl appeared from a bowl of water. Of course, she'd get pissed seeing the cookie made in Crail's image. And now again, she was angry over a complete misunderstanding. Tiara tried explaining she was making cookies for everyone, and Pearl smirked, telling Tiara to just enjoy her fun while she could, because soon Tiara was going to feel the same pain she felt. This warning worried Tiara. Elliot and the Knights would detail Aqua on what was happening with the seas. He was going to ride out by horseback to see Pearl, while Tiara and Isilla were to follow behind in a carriage. Tiara wondered what Pearl meant when she said she was going to feel the same pain. All the while, Isilla kept thinking about the love potion. Tiara could see Isilla wasn't looking too hot, and suggested they all have tea. The best thing they could do was calm their minds. Isilla decided to help, and used her blessing to fill the tea kettle with water. Aqua would commend her for being such a good caretaker of the seas, but Isilla didn't think so, since she couldn't stop the sea from turning black. He then reminded her she tried her best over and over, despite Pearl trying to stop her. This was just one of the many good things Isilla's done for the kingdom, and he didn't want her to forget that. It cheered her up, but when she'd see how close he and Tiara were, Isilla's heart sank again. Again, she thought about Pearl's words telling her to use the love potion on the man she wanted. She put a drop of her blood into the bottle, thinking of Aquasteed's name over and over in her mind. Nothing else. She poured it into a teacup and served him. Tiara scooted right next to him and told Isilla to eat with them. Isilla felt guilt. As Aqua went to grab his tea and pulled it to his face, she shouted at him not to drink it. But she was too late. She admitted to slipping in the love potion and broke down in tears. He suddenly felt something in his throat. He was quickly taken over. With the low and sweet tone he usually had towards Tiara, he told Isilla not to cry, and now looked at her with a loving expression. He gestured his hand towards her, but Tarmo caught it, reminding Aqua he was going to the sea. Aqua answered that's right, he'd take Isilla there first, and that because the sea fairies loved her, she should go with him. When Tiara called him, he told her she could wait here at the castle. Tiara knew it was because of the drug, but her face stared in horror as Isilla took his hand. She wanted it to stop, for him to only look at her. Isilla smiled at Aqua, and he smiled back, but suddenly his head throbbed as he resisted, and she stared aghast. Elliot barged in, ushering the prince to hurry to the ocean. Everything was ready. Rushing on horseback, Aqua felt deep remorse for letting Tiara see him that way earlier. He shouted, "I'm the worst man alive!" And Elliot agreed. He asked how that love potion was actually affecting him. Aqua was calm right now, but he knew he'd be in trouble if he saw Lady Isilla. His heart was wavering. He loved Tiara so much. He wanted to say her name, but felt like Isilla's name would slip out instead. In the distant past, Fairy King Pearl gave her sea blessings to a prince of the Marine Forest Kingdom. The two had even gotten betrothed, their love bound by an engagement ring. Until one day, when coming up from the ocean, she spotted him with another woman. She took her ring off, sulking, depressed, wondering what love was anyway. That's when Crail appeared before her. The time they spent together made her smile until she saw him with Tiara. Pearl felt she was the only one all alone. Her anger turned the skies to thunder. The sea became black with her despair. Keith wondered for how long it's been this bad, and Crail answered 700 years. Keith then asked how Crail was going to solve this, since he was basically the entire cause. Crail at this point knew Pearl's motivations and what had transpired. He had hope things would work out, but didn't think he could come out and ask Pearl if she was just acting jealous. He convinced Keith to help him with something, despite Keith's reluctance. Aqua had to get off his horse on the way to the ocean. He was sweating, panting, and out of breath. He presumed this was a side effect of the drug. He knew the very idea to be inconceivable, but his body thirsted for Isilla. Elliot suggested they return to the castle, but Aqua was going to do whatever it takes to get to the ocean. Suddenly, a carriage pulled up behind them, and Tiara and Isilla came out. No, why is Isilla here? Tiara reached towards him, and he pulled away. His body ached harder. She didn't blame him. It was the love potion. It wasn't his fault. He was trying to resist. But that's when Isilla would call out to him, and he'd look at her with loving eyes of relief. She approached him, and the two had joyful looks towards each other. Tiara relegated to being in the background. He reached towards Isilla, and she was excited to have his hands hold her face. Dude, what a fucking bitch. She's already probably breaking several laws in the kingdom by drugging the crown prince and infidelity. But she's still trying to have her cake and eat it too? I get it. Isilla is like 14, so of course she's like the prime suspect to having low impulse control and being manipulated by a literal ethereal being that is the Sea Fairy King. But her behavior is reprehensible that she'd still allow herself to continue on with this. I'd throw her in jail. Tiara felt she herself was being selfish. How? This is her husband. Why is she blaming herself? Then, suddenly shouted, she loved him more than anyone in the world. This broke Aqua from his spell momentarily, and he looked distraught, seeing her break down on the floor. He used this moment to pierce himself in the knee, and then embraced Tiara, holding her, calling her name with a sweet tone. He couldn't believe he let a drug overtake him. He'd never forgive himself for being so spineless. She shouted he wasn't spineless at all, and Isilla was saddened by another loss. I think this is good food for thought. What if your significant other was hit by a love potion for someone else? Not the one Isilla gave Aqua. Obviously, that one is weak since he was able to resist, but an irresistible one. This concept happens in a popular manhwa video I made, and honestly, it's pretty rough. I'd love to hear what you do against an unstoppable potion. The gang reached the black, murky ocean. Crail apologized to Tiara on behalf of all the trouble Pearl's caused. Tiara took accountability for failing to be attentive enough. She could see Pearl was hurting, and even if it was all a misunderstanding, she blamed herself, too. Wrong. She's a victim blaming herself, and really, no being should be allowed to behave this way. If Pearl would not accept a jail cell, I'd send her to the gallows. Crail took notice of Aqua's injury and asked what happened. Isilla stepped forward to explain it was her fault. She forced His Highness to drink the secret elixir of the sea. Crail sighed. He thought Pearl was so hopeless. The effects wouldn't last long though, and Pearl definitely had an antidote. Isilla wanted to see her, but Keith warned she couldn't with how dangerous the ocean was. Aqua told her not to worry about him, but the most important thing was dealing with the state of the ocean. He and Tiara pleaded with Crail and Keith to help them. Keith then explained the reason why there were 3 fairy kings. If one of them lost their way, suffered, or warped nature, the rest could right it. To be more precise, humans blessed by the other 2 fairies must fix it. Aqua had Crail's blessing, Tiara had Keith's. If the 2 of them used their magic, they could restore the ocean. Staring at the murky water, Tiara wondered if she could really do this. Wondered if major events like this really happened to villainesses. Aqua assured her it'd be fine. He raised his hands, and his magic shot into the ocean, turning part of it from black to blue. Keith promised Tiara that with his power, there was no way she could lose, and she was grateful to have their belief. Using her magic, she called upon the trees of the forest to help her protect the kingdom. Vines sprouted from the beach sand, but stopped. Her magic, unfortunately, wasn't strong enough because she wasn't the heroine. She then came up with an idea to use the cookies she made, since they had her magic in them. Keith took a bite out of an Aqua cookie, assessing that this should indeed work. He then shoved cookies in both Tiara and Aqua's mouths, and Tiara could feel magic coursing through her body. With the buff, she called upon a vast forest like Hashirama from Naruto. These trees could absorb contaminated water. Aqua then shot more powerful blasts, clearing the ocean completely. The rain poured on them in a beautiful splendor. The drug's effects wore off him, since Tiara's magic entered his body through the cookie he ate. Tiara quickly held him close, and he thanked her for believing in him. A droplet dripped from Aqua onto Tiara, and she thought, oh, Prince Aqua is dripping with handsomeness. And this Prince Aqua was hers alone. He remarked her hand was so warm as it touched his face, and she got even more embarrassed because he told her he wanted her to do it more. Tiara felt she should feel cold from the water, but for some reason felt hot. Her heart was pounding. Keith told them to get a room, but Crail didn't think it was such a big deal and dried them off quickly. They all took notice of the flowers blooming. Keith explained they were a new species that derived from Tiara's magic. She opened a bud and tasted the grains that came from inside. These flowers produced a delicious sugar. So of course Aqua had to take her finger and suck it right off. She started to squeal, and Keith pulled her away. The jealousy was driving him crazy. Aqua pulled her back because Tiara was his wife. Putting the brief reprieve aside, Tiara wanted to give one more shot at talking to Pearl and resolving her heartache. Isilla offered to take her there, admitting fault and that she should have known she couldn't change Aqua's feelings with the potion. She wanted one more chance to right these wrongs. Tiara accepted her help and told Aqua to head back to the city to inform the people the ocean issues have been fixed. The two girls went down into the ocean, Tiara determined to resolve everything, but Crail would be the first one to deal with Pearl. He transformed back into his regular form, telling Pearl he took the form of a woman because she said she hated men, but now he didn't need it anymore. He explained no one would blame a fairy king for creating a natural disaster. People sometimes deemed them necessary, but it wasn't good for her to involve humans in a problem between just the two of them. Pearl whimpered, questioning why just her. It started with the selfish demands of the sea fairies, constantly complaining Isilla wasn't happy. She would normally never separate two people in love, but when she saw Crail having so much fun with people other than her, it hurt. She always thought that fairy kings were lonely beings, but then realized she was the only one who was lonely. She put up a front, telling him she was fine being alone, but he knew that wasn't true. He's known she's longed for company more than anyone. Tiara and Isilla barged in, and were quickly surprised to see Crail in his true form. Really? I think at most, it just looks like he cut his hair. Tiara smiling at him caused Pearl's rage to flare. She never would have guessed Aqua would overcome the secret elixir's effects himself. She asked what made Tiara so special. Tiara couldn't tell Pearl she was the villainess. But there was one thing she could say. The only one she loved was Prince Aqua. Pearl thought Tiara was lucky to have a man who only thought of her and admitted the one she desired left her, saying they were too far apart in standing. A human and a fairy king can never be together. That's what he said before choosing a human woman. He also said he didn't want to forget her, so he took her name. Pearl had no need for a love that was neither here nor there. Isilla realized her last name was Pearlant. Oh my god. So her family caused everything? She asked if someone among her ancestors declined marriage with Pearl, but Pearl told her that was in the past now. Crail stepped forward, kneeling before Pearl and presenting the coral accessory he wanted to give her. He chose it because he thought it would suit her. Tiara taught him that the woman he loved would be happier with the gift he chose himself. Pearl gasped, mouth open with the beautiful accessory adorning her hair. He teased, asking if she was perhaps jealous of Tiara. She gasped again, with him patting her head as he drew closer, saying, "I didn't realize you loved me so much that you'd blacken the ocean. I thought it was because you hated me." She squeaked out she didn't hate him, and he put his finger to her lips, telling her she needed to accept punishment as a fairy king. Isilla cut in, asking to be the one to choose her punishment, hoping she could give Pearl a lighter sentence than a fairy king would. But Crail could not agree to that. A human could not have a say in punishment for a fairy king. He snapped his fingers and sent her away to the surface. Pearl accepted her punishment, since all this was her fault, and Crail told her to give Aqua and Tiara the blessings of the Sea Fairy King. She wasn't expecting that. She swore to never give her blessings to the humans. Crail explained he was quite fond of humans. He blessed the Crown Prince, Keith blessed Tiara, so if she blessed them both, the kingdom would have peace. Despite knowing it would consume almost all her power, he thought it was the appropriate punishment for Pearl. She groaned at the idea, but bestowed her blessings on the two that shouldered the future of Marine Forest, giving Aqua's steed a water blade that could pierce all, and Tiara Rose a water wall that could deflect all. Receiving the blessing filled both Tiara and Aqua with hot pain, and knowing Tiara might be hurting, Aqua decided to rush back. He burst the door open where the girls were waiting and asked if Tiara was alright. But honestly, Tiara didn't think much of it. Seeing Aqua embrace her caused Isilla to sadden once more. She stood up to apologize for causing the two of them so many problems, and asked for punishment, mentioning she saw herself unfit to manage the ocean, especially now since the two of them had the ocean blessing. But for some reason, Aqua told her to keep her position, since she knows the ocean better than anyone. How lax and forgiving he and Tiara are kinda pisses me off. They're making it sound like Isilla didn't do anything wrong. Tiara went on about how no one loves the ocean more than Isilla, but then Aqua goes on to reason Tiara was busy with the forest, and he had to spend more time dealing with diplomatic relations. He didn't want their kingdom to be at the mercy of the fairy kings any longer. Tiara completely forgave Isilla, because she used the potion in a moment of weakness. Or maybe it was the power of the game. I really hate their reasoning. One morning, Tiara woke up to Aqua cuddling her from behind. He usually woke up before her, so this was rare. She stared at his beautiful long lashes up close, thinking she loved him so much. That's when Keith barged into their bedroom with a gift of flowers. Aqua tossed a blanket over her, asking Keith if he did know common courtesy. Keith quipped back that fairy kings were absolute. But Aqua would not compromise when it came to his wife. He wanted to be the only one allowed to see her when she first woke up. Keith scoffed and called him selfish. After the couple got dressed, Keith presented the sugar gathered from the edible flowers Tiara sprouted earlier. He also had a bottle of their nectar as well. Aqua expected nothing less of her flowers, saying every part of it was sweet, just like her. The two would flirt, and Keith hated watching them do it in front of him. She'd use the flowers to produce a new hard candy with a golden color, and she decided to take it to him at the beach, where he was supervising the planting of her trees. She wanted him to be the first one to try them. Aqua thought they looked just like her, beautiful, cute, and tasty looking. He closed in on her face, waiting for a kiss, and she got embarrassed, asking if he was still in the middle of work. They turned to see Crail staring out at the sea. Tiara gives some sappy monologue about how the ocean is Pearl's love, but I don't even want to describe it because of how much I hate Pearl, and feel she's undeserving of all this forgiveness. Tiara wanted to give Pearl some candies too, with the hope they'd calm her soul, even if only a little. A beam of light shot from the ocean, blessing the entire place with Pearl's power. The entire beach regenerated. This was her farewell gift, using her last bit of remaining power. And now, she'd be going into a deep slumber. Crail then took one of Tiara's candies and tossed it straight into the ocean, hoping it'd reach Pearl this way. At the evening party, the people would clamor over the royal couple having received the Sea Fairy King's blessing. Now their kingdom's future was secure. Tiara would get a pulsating feeling and decide to take a look outside the balcony. She'd get a letter from Lady Akari, who wrote about all her happy days with Prince Heartknights in Japanese. A little late, but Akari tells Tiara to watch out for the love potion event. Now Tiara knew for sure it was a canon event from the game. But now that she's received the Sea Fairy King's blessing, she'd unlocked the hidden stage. Tiara still had more to think about in order to avoid troubling events with the game. Aqua would find her outside and ask her what was wrong. He held her face, telling her no need to worry. He'd always be by her side, in sickness and in health. He wanted to share all of her joy, sadness, and pain with her. Her worries washed away as tears dripped down her face. She told him she loved him. She loved him so much and with all her heart, and thanked him for choosing her. She was just too cute. He had to kiss her. Soon after, the two would dance under the spotlight. She thought there was no way the story of a villainess who was adored by the prince of a neighboring kingdom exists in the game. As long as she was with Aqua, she'd always be happy. Aww, I guess mostly satisfying. The last arc really annoyed me. I feel like we should have ended that marriage, but it was fine, I guess. How do you guys feel about this story? Subscribe for more anime, but for now, watch this next video. It's me, Comfy T. I'll see you all in the next one.